My executive position was snatched away and handed to my cousin. Now I've partnered with the one relative everyone despised. I became finance director, and the company is crumbling. After nearly a decade of dedication, they gave my position to a 23-year-old with zero experience. So I joined forces with the one person they feared most, bringing their team with me. Hello. I'm a 30-year-old woman who was recently cut off by my family because I left our family business and aligned myself with my uncle, who's retiring this year. I'm wondering if what I did was wrong. For context, my father, who would have turned 63 this year, had two younger brothers, Robert and Michael, who are 59 and 56 years old. The three of them had inherited my grandfather's property development company. Grandfather had hoped the brothers would run the business together as equal partners and everything would work out fine. Before we continue with today's story, if you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber helps me keep sharing these inspiring tales that touch your day. Thank you for your support. But 6 years after my grandfather stepped down, Uncle Michael decided to leave and start his own company. He was immediately ostracized from the family because nobody approved of his decision to compete against his own brothers. For the past 16 years, nobody in the family has spoken to him or acknowledged his existence. They act as if he were never part of the family at all. I learned to do the same. 3 years ago, my father passed away from kidney failure. His health had been declining for some time, and he'd been training me to take over in case he became unable to work. Nobody expected him to die, but fortunately, I was prepared to step into his role and handle his responsibilities at the company. I hadn't just been doing his work and helping Uncle Robert run the company for the past 3 years. Since graduating from business school, I'd been working alongside my father and uncle to learn everything about the business, hoping to eventually become a partner. I've been working there for about 9 years and certainly expected to become a partner soon, as that was what my father had wanted. However, about 10 days ago, I discovered that Uncle Robert had decided to make his son a partner, leaving me as the finance director. When my father was alive, he was the CEO, and Uncle Robert was the finance director. After my father died, my uncle took the CEO position, and I was promoted to finance director. So logically, if someone was going to take my uncle's position after his retirement in a few years, shouldn't it be me? My cousin Nathan had never been in the picture before, so this decision completely blindsided me. He's only 23 years old and graduated barely a year ago. He has an economics degree but no practical or hands-on experience. More importantly, he's far too young to be a partner in the firm. He hasn't paid his dues, and I'm certain he doesn't deserve it any more than I do. Naturally, I was extremely upset when I found out. I didn't even hear it from my uncle directly. My mother told me she'd just learned from Nathan's mother that I had supposedly turned down the opportunity to be a partner and that my uncle was now offering it to Nathan. When my mother told me this, I immediately called my uncle because we hadn't discussed it before, and I thought it must be a mistake. But when we spoke, he told me he was seriously considering making Nathan the CEO and a partner because he was retiring in a few months. I was shocked and reminded him that Nathan had never worked before. He'd spent the last year finding himself and traveling. He was completely inexperienced and unqualified for the job. Then my uncle told me that's where I come in. Since I'd be mentoring Nathan, he wouldn't have anything to worry about. So I was still needed in the organization. He still needed me to handle everything until Nathan adjusted, and I would continue as the company's finance director. But I wasn't okay with this arrangement. I told him I'd worked extremely hard for 9 years and deserved the recognition I was due. Nathan didn't deserve this position, and I made it clear I was unhappy with the decision. If he made Nathan a partner and CEO, I would resign and leave the company. My uncle tried to tell me I was overreacting, that he was only doing this to secure Nathan's future, and that his son wouldn't settle for anything less than CEO. He didn't want Nathan to leave the firm as Uncle Michael had done. So this was his only option, and he wanted me to understand. He even tried to reassure me by saying Nathan would only be the nominal CEO, but I would be in charge, and he knew Nathan would respect me. I tried to negotiate. I said I was willing to keep my position as finance director, but I wanted to be made a partner in the company. He said he wasn't sure if he could do that because he needed to talk to Nathan first, but I didn't care. I'd put in the work, and I wanted to be CEO and partner, or at least a partner. He could either agree to my terms or I'd leave. It was an ultimatum. When my uncle and I argued about this, he eventually told me we lived in a free country, so I could do whatever I wanted. But his mind was made up. He'd already discussed this with the board members and planned to make his announcement within days. His decision was final, and I had two choices: accept it or leave as I'd threatened. It was a difficult day to discover where I stood with my uncle because I'd always thought we had a wonderful relationship. But clearly, when it came to our professional relationship, I'd misjudged our closeness. It's not surprising either. Nathan has always been privileged, so I'm not shocked that my uncle chose him over me. This is his flesh and blood, so I could never compete. I was furious about the outcome. My mother suggested I get a lawyer and pursue them legally, but I didn't want to do that. Instead, I came up with a better plan that would really upset them. I'm sure most of you can guess what I did next, but for those who don't, I emailed Uncle Michael that day. I explained everything that had happened and said I would be willing to work for him right away if he wanted me. I didn't want to sit around feeling sorry for myself. The only thing on my mind was getting back at my uncle, so I didn't hesitate to contact Uncle Michael. He responded within 24 hours. He said he was prepared to offer me the position of finance director and would promote me to CEO in a few years after his retirement. He agreed to my terms of making me a partner since I was willing to share everything I knew about my current company to help his company succeed. We met in person a few days later, and it was actually enjoyable. I had only shut him out of my life because my parents and the rest of the family demanded it. But apart from that, I'd never had a bad relationship with Uncle Michael. In fact, he had always been the fun uncle, and we were very close until I was 15. Then the family feud happened, he was isolated, and I never spoke to him again until now. When I was young, I was never told exactly why Uncle Michael broke away from the family. Even when I met him recently, he refused to discuss it. But it was his decision, and I needed to respect it. However, he told me he was surprised that Uncle Robert would do something like this, since when my father was alive, he would never have attempted such a thing. He was pleased that it had worked out in his favor and expressed his desire to have me on board because he'd only heard positive things about me. They had kept tabs on us and our business since they were our main competitors. He knew about my significant contributions to the company and was excited to have me on his side. He also told me that, unlike Uncle Robert, he didn't have any children, so I had nothing to worry about there either. We finalized everything and I resigned that same day. Uncle Robert seemed unfazed by my resignation. I texted him formally to let him know I wouldn't be coming in for the next 2 weeks, since he had clearly stated the company would function perfectly without me. He said he was fine with it and already had replacements lined up, so I didn't need to worry about my job. I didn't speak with him after that. However, yesterday, Uncle Michael and I posted a photo together to celebrate my joining his company. I went out to dinner with the team to meet the other executives before starting work with them. To say my family is currently in chaos would be an understatement. Since I posted that photo, I've been flooded with text messages, voicemails, and phone calls. I haven't responded to anyone, but I can tell people are upset. Uncle Robert is furious and has already labeled me a traitor, threatening that I'll face consequences for this decision. He can do his absolute worst. I've also been denounced by many other family members, which I find strange because from their messages, they already know I did this because I was passed over for partnership and replaced by Nathan. But if they didn't speak out against the injustice done to me then, they have no right to condemn me now. My mother is the only person whose opinion matters to me. When I spoke with her this morning, she wasn't pleased with my decision either. That surprised me because just days before, she had insisted I hire a lawyer to sue my uncle and claim what was rightfully mine. But now she thinks I've gone too far. She told me there's a lot of history with Uncle Michael that I'm unaware of, and she doesn't think it's appropriate for me to know. That was frustrating because if they won't tell me why Uncle Michael was excluded from the family, I can't decide whether to trust him. As an adult, I believe I can handle the truth, and they shouldn't keep me in the dark. So far, based on his actions, he's been extremely courteous to me, and I see no reason to cut him off. Nevertheless, my mother said the family was very angry with me, and she was disappointed too. But if I'd made up my mind, there was little she could do to change it. I tried to talk with her, but she just hung up and said she needed time to process everything. So now I'm very conflicted about what's happening. Am I wrong for joining our competitors after my uncle refused to make me a partner and chose his son instead? 6 months later. It's been half a year since my last update, and much has changed. Uncle Robert has officially retired, and Nathan has taken over the business. So far, he's basically maintaining the status quo and not making any changes. Maybe things will work out for them after all, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. Since then, many former employees have moved to our company, which makes me extremely happy because I get to see familiar faces at my new workplace. My mother and I still haven't spoken, but I think I finally understand why. A few weeks ago, I was having dinner and drinks with Uncle Michael and his wife. After a while, my aunt left the room to rest. While we were chatting, I finally asked him what had happened between him and the family that resulted in him being cut off. He finally told me, years ago, my mother tried to initiate an affair with him. She invited him to help her in the kitchen during Thanksgiving dinner at our house. He followed her, having no idea what would happen. Once they were alone, she told him she wanted to take their relationship further. Despite being married to my father, she said she had always been attracted to him. He tried to move away from her, but just then, my father walked into the kitchen and saw them standing close together. My mother panicked and accused Uncle Michael of making advances toward her. I don't remember this because Nathan and I were in our rooms, but my father lost his temper and kicked Uncle Michael out of the house. Later, they told me Uncle Michael had to leave because of a work emergency. However, after that day, my mother made up other stories to cover up the incident so no one would believe him, including telling Uncle Robert and my father that Uncle Michael had planned to steal money from the company and start his own business. My father and Uncle Robert confronted him about this later, telling him that if he didn't leave voluntarily, they would ruin his life. So he decided to leave the company and start his own business. Since then, he's had no contact with the family. After learning all this, I decided it was best for me to follow his example and keep my distance from my family. It was heartbreaking to learn the truth about my mother, but I've accepted the facts, and this is my life now. I've found where I truly belong, in a place where my skills are valued and my contributions recognized. Sometimes the family you choose treats you better than the family you're born into. While I never expected things to turn out this way, I'm proud of standing up for myself and finding success on my own terms.